Hi, it's Pete here with another vlog. Today we're going to do a lovely vintage make and we're going to be using some of the dies from Untitled Chapter 2, namely Intricate Lace, Crochet, which is a wonderful set, and Geo Insects. You wait till you see the amount of detail in these dies, so watch the movie. You know that old saying, the devil is in the detail? Well, how's this for detail? This is the Geo Insects set. We're going to use one of these in a second. The crochet set, I mean, what can I say about that? There's 4 different lengths of lace border. You can use them individually or use them together. Whichever you choose, it's going to look fantastic, but the level of intricacy is phenomenal. And finally, intricate lace. Never before has a die been so aptly named. It's definitely lace, but the intricacy is, I'm sure you can see, quite something. And hopefully we're going to combine these 3 sets today to bring you something quite beautiful and vintage. Right, before we make some cuts today, it's a little science lesson really. Well, it's more physics. This, my friends, is what we call a precision base plate. It's a steel plate and we use it in place of our bottom cutting mat. Now, when you get a circle die, just a simple framelit circle, there are only 2 points of contact. So as the die goes through the machine, the roller comes into contact with 2 points, cuts your card beautifully. When we have a die like this, for example, which is very intricate, we know the payoff with having this level of intricacy is it does take a little more time to cut. We need to run it through the machine a few times. It's quite understandable and it doesn't bother me in the least. But if you take a line from here right across to there, there are almost 40 points of contact. That means the roller will come into contact at any one time with 40 points. So the pressure is reduced from the 2 points in the circle to 40 points here. And that's why it sometimes takes a bit more time to cut these. Hence the precision base plate, which I'll show you right now. Here's my platform, thin die adapter, and the base of the platform. We're going to use both of these, and then I'll place that into the machine. On the top of that goes my precision base plate with the black side face up. Now, here's something that's quite interesting. You are meant to place these face down to make the cut, but I find sometimes that it works just as well face up. Now, I don't, probably going against the recommendations, but you know what? It works just fine for me. But the beauty of it is I can see where I've made the cut. I can see if it's cut through at some of the very detailed points rather than having to turn it over and lose register. So on top of that goes my single cutting plate. The other cutting plate is over on the side just for a second. Now, I go through this every time. I'll run it through one way, then when it gets out the other side, I'll run it through again. You can see here that has cut through beautifully. But if you want, you can turn that through 90 degrees. And I'm just going to do this to show you. That one's cut fine, but it doesn't do any harm to the die, the plate, or anything else. And I'll put it through twice more. So that gives me confidence that I've got a perfect cut. So I do it one way, then the other, like that. If you have any doubts with a very, very detailed die like this, that is the best way to go. Let's just put my machine out of the way and I'll bring in my die brush. So that's the foam pad and this is the brush. And to get rid of all those, remember the old days where we just had a pokey tool and we had to poke out all these individual elements separately. Oh my goodness. I remember it well, as I'm sure you do too. So we've run that over the top. That has collected all of those little elements. And then that just falls away. Look at that, look at that. Pokey tool pop one little bit, that's it, ready to go. How about that for detail? Now, we'll put that to one side for a second, and I'm going to bring my machine back in, and I'm going to die cut the other two pieces, which are the crochet border and the bee die, which I'm going to use the wings from a little later. There, we'll put that border in the middle. Again, I can do it face up. You know what? We're going to do the bee at the same time. I'm using my precision base plate, so I have every confidence that we're going to get a lovely, clean, crisp, clear cut. And as I said, Tim is always pushing the boundaries when it comes to detail in die cutting. But this time, he's outdone himself, he really has. But you know what? They cut perfectly, they really do. So pleased with the way that these dies work. There's my bee. And again, I can take my die brush, which is over here. This time I'll just hold it in my hand and run that over. That will get there's not a lot of detail. I mean, years ago we said this was incredibly detailed, but you know, comparatively speaking, not that much these days. That's the bee, isn't that gorgeous? And next, my crochet lace border. Again, just run that over to release the die cut. A few little bits inside there. Again, run the brush. And that, look at that. How wonderful is that? Look at the detail. Wow. And that's it, that's my die cuts all ready to go. So remember the lace die cut. At the same time as cutting that rectangle, I cut one which is exactly the same size. And then I'm going to use spray adhesive, or whatever adhesive you prefer, to attach that to the background until I get something like this. Because we're going for a faux emboss this time. And I've got some distress inks, you'll see antique linen, wild honey, vintage photo, and walnut stain. There are others you could bring in, crushed olive, you could look at pumice stone maybe to get this kind of effect. But we are going for a very vintage, careworn look. And I'm going to start with the lightest colour first. Always start with a light colour. And this is my antique linen. And I'm just going around, just making nice gentle circles. I'm not pressing too hard. I don't want to press too hard. If I need to add more, I just go over it again. I think one of the errors that people who use these inks for the first time, particularly over something delicate like this, is they press this so heavily into that sponge. And they use a bit too much ink. The best way, if you want to flood the ink colour, is to just do it a little at a time. So that's my antique linen, and you can see the difference here. Look at that, just a couple of minutes, and you've got that going on. Wild honey. Now, this is quite a warm colour. It's an orange, I suppose. But we're just going to put that in and around. So we're not going for total coverage. We just want to get that warmth coming through. Next, vintage photo. Now this is a much darker tone, but it's quite warm at the same time. So that's going to go around there. I know that this is one of Tim Holtz's favourite colours. He calls upon vintage photo time and again. And you can see I'm just concentrating on the edge. Then, when that's done, finally, walnut stain. This is a very dark, very deep brown. And you can see I'm using it, rather than flat, I'm using it at an angle. And this will give me a lovely contrast when it comes to layering the different die cuts. Because we're working with very, very complex, intricate patterns. And when you put complex, intricate patterns together, if you don't have that contrast, they all merge. So look at that, look at the difference in a couple of minutes from that colour to that colour. And you can see the difference that vintage photo makes around the edge. Now, pop that to one side a second, and we'll turn to our lovely crochet lace border. I'm going to use the same colours, coming in with my antique linen again. Be very careful with this. It's a very gentle, delicate die cut, so we don't want to get too heavy. We don't want to distort or tear it. I'm just concentrating on the middle two because they're the ones I'll be using. A bit of wild honey in there, and this time you see I'm just pressing it down rather than running over the top. And finally, some vintage photo. Oh no, that's not finally. We need to come in with our walnut stain, don't we? The walnut stain is literally around the bottom. You'll notice that I've left this one clear. I haven't used the walnut stain because, again, the reason will become apparent. You see, when I place it on here, I want the lighter colour to come through. So that's that one. Something else I should point out about these lovely crochet dies. The blade stops here and here. It doesn't go all the way to the end. So when you make your first cut in the card, it'll still be attached to the card. Then what you can do is take your die, move it along, and create a really long lace border. So that can go on for infinity pretty much if you have an infinitely long piece of card. So next up, we're going to take the bee. A lovely bee from our Geo Insects. You get the bee, you get a moth, you get a lovely sort of almost like a big Goliath beetle, I suppose it is, and the ever popular dragonfly as well. So a little bit of wild honey in there. Finally, vintage photo, just to bring in the depth, and for the contrast, we'll go around the edge with, again, some walnut stain. And that's it. They're ready to go. Now, at the same time, I've taken a phrase which I printed off when my computer reads, "I hope life gives you wings and you have the courage to use them." Sage advice indeed. But you can see I use the same techniques on that, the same inks and everything. And I think it's time to actually put our frame together. One of my favourite products at the moment is this set of Tim Holtz paper dolls from Ideology. What you're getting with this is lovely die-cut vintage photos. This is an example of one. You've got family groups, you've got children, you've got men, ladies, boys, girls, different scales from this size right up to, well, that size and bigger really. And we're going to use one of those today. I've got this lovely little ballerina making a gorgeous curtsy there. So that's going to go onto my background in a second. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to take my bee and I'm just going to trim away the base and the head. It's just the wings that I want today, and I'm going to apply that to the rear of my ballerina. So I'll just take some PVA, pop that there, and just get the wings exactly where I want it. You can see that they're so delicate, absolutely gorgeous. And I'm going to bend those up ever so slightly. You'll see why in a second. Now, the lace trim. Remember I said I didn't want to put any dark ink across the top. That's because I won't get the contrast that I'm looking for when I apply it to my intricate lace background. Now, put some glue there, get it roughly centered. Not really important. It all comes down to personal preference. You could use a couple of these different crochet lace borders as well. You get some nice contrast going on there, but I've stuck that down. Then I'm going to take my scissors. Oops. Spoke too soon. Why does this always happen when you're filming? It never happens when you're preparing it in the studio. Everything goes swimmingly. As soon as you turn those cameras on, there it goes. There's some lore behind it, I think. It works doubly so when it's live TV as well. So there we are. We've trimmed that to size. That's ready to go. Lovely, delicate lace border there. Now, time to take my ballerina, and again we want to get a little bit of contrast, and one of the best ways of doing that is to use the 3D foam pads rather than PVA, because that will give me some depth, some dimension, and of course in turn contrast. So I'll place that lovely little girl around about there. And finally my phrase, you remember that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pokey tool and I'll pop a hole in the top there and another one. So we pop those holes through, and I'm going to use a pin, like a safety pin. It's another Tim Holtz product. Gorgeous pins, you get them in various sets. Of course in a vintage styly. So we'll thread that through the two holes that we poked. And we'll pop that there like so. Now, next thing I'm going to do is take some 3D foam pads again, and I'm going to add this to my composition, maybe coming down over the bottom of the lace like that. And that's my composition, but of course it's not complete because we do need a frame in which to put it. And if you saw my vlog from a couple of weeks ago with the potted die, you'll notice I used a sort of a galvanized metal effect. I've done the same on the outside of this, and we've also put the lace border, but I've used the full size this time. We put the intricate lace on the inside using the same techniques as before. This is going to be the base for my piece of art. And again, double-sided foam pads on the back of there. I think this time we'll use about 4. Now, I have cut my nails recently, so I'm hoping that I can get these backings off without too much fuss and bother. We nailed it. There you go. Perfect. Quality foam pads, sticks too. There we are. Now, I'll center it and I'll get it towards the top as well. And there, my friends, is our finished art. Hello, I'm back. I almost forgot. I brought some samples along. These are some things which we made for a recent Hochanda show featuring some of the dies that we've just been looking at. Let's just take a look at this one. It's the bee, obviously. We've used a circle there, and we've used the this lovely little alphabet, this alphanumeric alphabet here. But that's just in black card, but the impact against the white and the mustard color is fantastic. Then next up, we've got another bee there onto a tag. Just again, black card, bit of gilding wax, and you can see I've used one of those lovely swirls from the Adorn set underneath. Sticking with the Geo Insect theme, how about that one? Not only have we got the insect, we've got an embossed background using the lumber die. We've got this banner, and again the techniques we've just used previously with the intricate lace die and that lovely alphabet. That's the alphanumeric, the tiny alphanumeric alphabet die. Didn't I tell you that this dragonfly was gorgeous? Now, one other, this is something which we might see coming up in a blog soon, actually, the technique used for this. But that's the beetle from the Geo Insects set, and you can see we've used the same lace die. This time just in ivory card, no fancy techniques there coming through, just beautiful, beautiful ivory card, just to give it that decorative edge. Next up, now the dragonfly, this time we've just used the wings and we've attached that to a key using various techniques to get that weathered look. Anybody who is a Harry Potter fan will no doubt recognize this motif. Intricate lace again, just used as a background. Ivory card against this lovely pink. We've used the floral from Wildflower Stems #1, and again that gorgeous alphabet. Then finally, these are some of my favorite kind of makes. We're just looking at 2 shades of grey, ivory card, and we've just adorned this with the strips of die cut lace right there. Some of the large funky florals coming in to decorate that. Another wedding themed card. Again, 2 strips of lace, same strips turned back to back. Simple, effective, gorgeous. Really, really neat, classy. This is, those of you who know my works will know that I love to use these hearts. They are the primitive hearts, the 3 on the die, of which this is the biggest. And again, we've got the intricate lace in the background and the crocheted lace border going on there. So that's a nice kind of mixed media. And last but not least, very, very simple, Daddy's Girl. No prizes for guessing who Daddy is. And we've used the lace across the bottom there, just as an adornment. Sometimes die cutting doesn't need to be the focus. It can just be the thing that sets the whole piece of art off. And that, my friends, is definitely it. And there you have it. Thank you very much for watching once again. I hope you enjoyed the techniques, but more importantly, those dies. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I can assure you that you can see 1,000,001 ways to use them. And if you do, then send in your artwork to us. Get onto our app, check out our website. There are ways of sharing your artwork with other Sizzix lovers around the world, and I do mean around the world. So yep, sizzix.co.uk, the blogs, everything you need to know for inspiration and more information about the different dies and Sizzix products. Thanks again for watching. See you again soon.